Hare Krishna, everyone. I heard a really beautiful thing today by His Holiness Radha Govinda Maharaj about Ardhh Kukkutta nyaya. It's an example given by Adi Shankaracharya ji, describing our tendency to kind of pick and choose parts of stories or philosophy that we hear from the Vedas and the Shastras, and how it can be quite dangerous, for our own spiritual growth. And in the end, we may not be able to get anything substantial out of the story or the philosophy itself. And I think the example is given of a person who has a chicken or a hen and decides, well, actually, the front portion of this hen, the feeding portion, is a little too difficult to maintain. I don't really need it. And I like the back portion, the part that gives the eggs. It sounds really silly, but the man then decides, I'm going to chop off the front part and I'm only going to keep the back part. But if you do that, you kind of stop getting the eggs. But if we pick and choose parts of the Shastra, depending on our, our own tendencies, our ego, or whatever it is, and we reject other portions because we think, well, this makes sense to me, this doesn't, we're actually going to be missing out on the entire concept, the entire bigger picture. We won't be able to actually grasp the actual meaning in any shape or form. And this was in relation to, once he was asked quite aggressively a question that, what kind of a god is your Krishna? He steals clothes from young girls. That's so immoral. These they're wives of other men, and he's stealing their clothes. And Maharaj says, okay, just for the record, they were not other people's wives. They were actually very unmarried young girls who had been praying to Katyayani Devi to actually get Krishna as their husband. So Krishna is in our hearts. He's Paramatma. He's there with every single jiva from time immemorial. He knows our deepest desires, and actually he strives to fulfill them. That is his relationship with his devotees. So for us to kind of just pick that part of the story and criticize God, it's quite audacious, to say the least. So Maharaj told this person, okay, but do you remember the part where he gave cloth to Draupadi when Draupadi was being disrobed and this, horrific scene was happening in her life? He was the only one who could protect her. So he asked the guy, do you know about that story? And the person's like, yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't believe whether it's true or not. I don't know. I don't believe that part. So Maharaj is like, okay, so this is very interesting. We pick certain parts where Krishna does something wrong. Like, why does he marry 16,108 women? How can he do that? We reduce him to our level of morality and ethics. We reduce him degrade him to our level. But when it comes time to accept his magnificence and his greatness, when he says in the Gita, Aham bija pradha pita, I am the seed-giving father of the entire creation, then we're like, maybe. When it comes time to give him credit for robing, not disrobing, giving cloth to Draupadi, we're like, well, maybe that happened. Maybe that didn't happen. Because then that would mean we may have to surrender to him. If we accept that Krishna is truly the supreme person, then it might entail us changing some of our habits, changing some of our worldviews, and that might be a bit more difficult. Too much for us to chew off. So I do, even in myself, I can see the tendency that I believe this part of the Vedas, I believe this part of what Srila Prabhupada said, I believe this part of the Bhagavata, but this part of it, I don't really believe it. I think we'll be missing out if we tend to continue with that, no, I'm just going to pick and choose. We will be the only ones, because we won't really be able to get to the essence, to how deep we'll rely on our ability to actually accept everything given in the Bhagavad, everything said by Krishna, 100% as it is. Maharaj replies to that person that when he says, I don't believe that. He says, it's not about you and I believing it. Do we believe? It's not about even what I believe. He's saying, what do Shukadev Goswami, what is Veda Vyas, what is Srila Prabhupada, what is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Adi Shankaracharya, what are the great sages and the rishis and the munis, what do they proclaim loud and clear, again and again, saying that Sri Krishna is the supreme person. And he gives another example that we can't reduce him to our level. He gives the example of a car driving on a road and an airplane in the air. They actually have different rules that they follow. If the person sitting in the car stopped at the red light thinks, why is this plane? What's wrong with this pilot? Why is this plane just driving through this red light? That would be ludicrous. The airplane has different rules because it's not bound by the laws of the land as such. So this was a really, really interesting point that I think we tend to very often overlook. We judge everyone according to our own parameters, and it's natural. We have to have some kind of general sanity, and we have to all follow the rules to some degree. But God is not us. We are not God. So to question, before we can question what Krishna does, we gotta first fully understand him. I think a similar thing can be applied to other devotees, other Vaishnavas. It's best to apply the rules to ourselves and leave the judgment of other people, other devotees, gurus, sadhus, even Shastra. Leave judgment for a later date. Let us deepen our own understanding and really build the faith until we can pass judgment for our own benefit. Happy Ekadashi.